like people are finding a seat. All right, let's begin now. I'd like to welcome you to the 2014 annual meeting of the San Clemente Historical Society and the San Clemente City Council Forum, Candidate Forum. The purpose of the Historical Society annual meeting is to elect members to our board of directors for the upcoming year. Following a brief meeting, we will have the candidate forum. So let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone please stand. Place your hand on your heart. Ready to begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Now, the minutes for the last annual meeting were back at the table. I hope all the members had a chance to take a look at them. Are there any corrections to those minutes from the last annual meeting a year ago? All right, seeing none, if there's no objections, the minutes are approved as printed. I want to thank everyone for attending today and thank the membership for having me as your president for the past 2 years. It's been an interesting, challenging, and rewarding time for me. We've had some successes and some disappointments, but the cause of preservation has advanced. We're looking forward to making great strides in the year to come. I want to thank the candidates for coming. We'll have you up here at the table here in just a few minutes. And I'd also like to acknowledge some individuals who have really kept the Historical Society going for the past year and more. First of all, if you just stand, please. Our matriarch, Lois Dival. There's Lois. If you just hold your applause, I've got a short list here. But, our patriarch, Jack Lashbrook. Did Jack make it? Maybe not. Our board of directors for this past year: Rod Gantos, Mike Cotter, Marianne Comas, Marilyn Wigglesworth, Georgette Corson, Karen Phillipson, Deborah Kohler, and Brian Hannigan. Brian? There's Brian. So I thank big hand for a great board of directors to work with. Hard workers. Also, Bill Blewett is not on the board, but he's been our membership chair. Bill, you did the check-in today. He's been membership chair for years. Great job, thank you. Also, Jim Pruitt has kept our website alive. Jim? There he is, right there. Dale Larson has kept our financial books accurate. Fred Dival produced our newsletter. I don't see Fred. Great job, Fred. Also, the many volunteers who worked our booth each first Sunday of the month at the Village Art Fair on Avenida Del Mar. And those many volunteers who helped us run our various events that we've had, our quarterly meetings and so on. I apologize for anyone who I didn't mention. So now we'll move on to the election of directors. The nominating committee has developed a slate of directors for nomination to the board. They are Marianne Comas, Marilyn Wigglesworth, Mike Cotter, and Deborah Kohler for 2-year terms. Larry Culbertson, that's me, for a 1-year term. And President Rod Gantos for a 2-year term. Are there any nominations from the floor? This is only for the members. Hearing none, I'd like to call for a vote of the membership only. All in favor of the nominating committee slate, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Congratulations to our newly elected directors. Marianne Comas, Marilyn Wigglesworth, Mike Cotter, Deborah Kohler, Larry Culbertson, and Rod Gantos is the president. These 6 directors will join the one other director who's already on the board. That's Brian Hannigan. There in the back. Okay. I'll now pass the presidency on to Mr. Rod Gantos. There's Rod. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. Great turnout. I appreciate everybody being here, and thank you so much for submitting questions in advance. We had a really good response to that. We did a couple of things a little differently this time around. Before I start, I would like to yield the mic to Mike for a couple of minutes. He's asked for a few moments to share a couple of words. Mike?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
This is on the retirement of Georgette Corson from the Board of Directors of the San Clemente Historical Society. Georgette served 8 years on the San Clemente Historical Society Board of Directors, 2 years as president. Her excellent and inspiring leadership has compelled the board and the society to accomplish great things. Her legacy is assured, but her effect on the community has been, is now, and will continue to be even greater. A tireless recruiter, something she may have picked up from her husband and former city council member Alan Corson, Georgette is primarily responsible for the makeup and personality of the board over the last 8 years. Now we know who to blame. And while members of the Historical Society can talk about the great fun they had at one of the New Year's Eve parties Georgette worked so hard to put on at the historic casino San Clemente, members of the community can quietly enjoy the physical history and local sense of identity that permeate North Beach today. Georgette would point out that historical preservation has been achieved through the efforts of many, but no one worked harder, smarter, or with more aplomb at the City Council podium. And no one was more effective at writing letters to the editor, guest columns, and magazine articles. But Georgette did more than sit behind the keyboard. I remember when she organized and produced a historic home tour of the Pier Bowl, walking through steep, rainy streets, explaining how a poetess lived here and a silent screen film star lived there. Society members and guests from the City Council experienced a magical morning they will never forget. But members of the community will benefit for decades from the historical preservation decisions made by enlightened City Council members. And it wasn't all fun. Georgette was called upon to serve the community in times of serious debate. She had longtime friends on different sides of a number of issues. A champion of small business and heritage tourism, Georgette was confronted with one principles-testing question after another. For instance, should the city approve a new massive building next to our historic City Hall at the top of Avenida Del Mar? Or should we preserve our historic small-town feel by limiting new downtown construction to 2 stories? Georgette would insist that other members of the society and the community have come forward over the years to answer tough questions. It's true we stand on the shoulders of giants, but no voice was more clear, more selfless, or more determined to do the right thing than Georgette Corson's, and none was more instrumental in achieving favorable outcomes. One particular accomplishment illustrates how quick Georgette was at recognizing and seizing opportunities. I'm referring to the San Diego television program Then and Now with Jack Gates, whose film crew came to town one day with a modest intention of getting a few seconds of historical images on film. Well, before he left town, Jack Gates had enough material for 2 complete 5-minute segments, which he immediately aired. It's clear from watching the shows that without spending a dime, fast-thinking Georgette had turned 10 minutes of prime-time San Diego television into not only an artful plug for the San Clemente Historical Society, but a high production values promotional piece for the city itself, worth an estimated $50,000 to $100,000, not counting airtime. I could stand here all afternoon listing the many historical preservation issues that Georgette adeptly handled during her years as a board member and president of the Historical Society. But instead, I'd like to invite every member of this community to take a stroll around town and check out the more than 200 historical buildings we still have. Look closely. In every case, whether it's a historical building in North Beach, downtown, the Pasadena Colony, or the Pier Bowl, look very closely because you'll see Georgette's fingerprints all over it. Thank you, Georgette.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Georgette. Before we start the candidates forum, I wanted to share a few words. I know a lot of you know me. I have been involved in the Historical Society, Lee, correct me if I'm wrong, I think since 2003. And he is the responsible party for why I've been involved for so long. Lee Van Slyke, I was working on the Casa Romantica at the time. That was my first project on my own when I set up my own company. And Lee talked me into looking into the Historical Society. And I've been there since. And I am really grateful for the service of a lot of the members that are friends, Mike Cotter, Marianne Gomez, and it's been a privilege to serve with them. You will hear a lot from me probably in the next couple of years, since I'm not necessarily shy of sharing my opinion. But I will just say this, in my San Clemente, a lot of things are interconnected. Historical is not a separate entity. Okay, it is very much woven into the fabric of this community. Decisions that we make relevant to transportation, relevant to space allocation, relevant to entertainment, heritage tourism, all of these things are interwoven and interconnected. And decisions have to be made where those interrelationships are actually considered very much so and not regarded as an afterthought. Because what is at stake not only is the quality of life, but is a unique brand that is actually translatable to dollars and cents for every single business owner, property owner, and person who looks to San Clemente to retire or to raise a family. Those are unique entities that are invaluable. And whenever we ignore them at our own peril. It is easier to see when it is endangerment of potentially a historical building, or something like a historical park like Maxburg Park, where we approach it from the perspective of solutions. I mean, progress happens and change is inevitable. But we have to take a unique approach to these unique assets. And it's okay to say that we are a unique community and we deserve custom-tailored solutions for us, and not just what happens to work in other communities around us. Those who live here, who have lived here, know what we need. And many times we forget to ask ourselves in favor of asking outside consultants, which are necessary, but they are only a tool in the implementation of those solutions. When we advocate for preservation programs, we are advocating for utilization of an invaluable resource to stimulate economic growth. Not everything that is economic growth is real estate development that is new and large. Okay? I can list community after community that has successfully accomplished this and has retained its individual uniqueness and has passed it on to generation after generation to appreciate. Congratulations are due to members of this society and preservationists who have worked for decades to perpetuate the unique and special built environment that endears San Clemente to people around the world as well as its residents. We all know the importance of tourism to our economy, whether it be surfing-based, whether it be ocean-based, whether it be historical environment-based, downtown. Those are very important for our economy. They're as important as property taxes. They're as, if not even more important, because property taxes are replicatable in other communities. Our built environment is not easily replicatable. Professionally, I've had people come to me when I work for large companies and offer to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to build things that are fake copies of what we uniquely have with the authentic patina of almost 100 years coming up. Decisions, I will just say that going forward, the decisions, like I said, regarding public policy, planning, and development simply must take into consideration the interrelationships between the economy, tourism, and livability in the special and unique context of our built environment. Thank you. I would like to ask the candidates for City Council if they would please take their seats. We have name cards for everybody.
purse unattended.
Good evening, everybody. We had, I'm sure you guys saw, we asked people to submit questions over the last about week or maybe 10 days, and we've had actually a lot of people submit questions. We had questions from everything from beach sand retention to, historical to what have you. And I've tried to compile a bunch of them into sort of general statements, leaving room for your answers. But I'm more than happy to share all the questions that we got at some point in advance as well, because some of them might be important for other forums that you take part in. I would like to just point out that Marianne Gomez right there will have a reminder of 15 seconds. So I believe we had it at 1 minute answers, Larry, for the candidates. I can't remember. 2 minutes, sorry, apologize. So just keep an eye on Marianne. She will point out when you're coming to an end there. And I will, how would you guys, what's your preference? Do we just go down the table, or you guys want to just put your hands up for the first question?
You're the boss. Do whatever you ask. This is your forum.
Wow, I appreciate that, then. Thank you. I'll tell you what, I'll start with you, Tim, then. Thank you. When you have things like that,
There it is.
deserve reward,
The
right?
resolution is sweet. Yeah.
No, you will get opening statements. I just wanted to ask, actually, how do you guys feel? And let's go down the table. This is just something that's personal to me, okay? Based on what I had said, do you guys see that same interrelationship connection between all the decisions that get made, where they have an impact on the physical environment, that we have things at risk in this community that other places may not have because of our history and heritage?
I'll start with that. Can you hear me okay? Is this not on? It's not on.
Does that work? Oh, yes, it does. Wow. That is very high powered. This is okay right here, right? Okay. So the question is how just if you could repeat it and maybe to clarify it.
Well, just to kind of repeat what I had said, Tim, is that, public policy planning and development, they sometimes tend to, at least from what I can see from as an outsider, they sometimes tend to be dealt with separately, and not where they might have a cumulative effect on our unique environment and heritage.
Okay. I spent the morning in Huntington Beach. My brother-in-law is a professional volleyball player, and he's right now playing the championships of the AVP tournament in Huntington Beach. And so I just walked in for about 15 minutes ago. And I wasn't dressed like this on the beach watching him play, but what was interesting was I had an opportunity to be in downtown Huntington Beach. And I saw things that, a lot of development decisions that were a byproduct of that community. And I think I was thinking a little bit about this because the forum this afternoon as I was driving down, San Clemente's planning decisions, a lot of its historical approaches has a lot to do with the way that it was created. It's somewhat baked into the DNA of the town. As a Spanish village by the sea, how planning was very different for the time, but also quite innovative, very rigorous standards. And how that was something that from the beginning of our heritage was there, even if for a while it wasn't as important. Whereas you look at a Huntington Beach, which was a former oil field, and it just didn't have that same type of care or concern. And so I would agree that a lot of the planning and decision making, particularly from a policy level, is a reflection of our heritage and our DNA as a community. People tend to prioritize that and why they live here. What's the reason for moving here? A lot of the time it's for the natural beauty, the village feel. And it's because I think the community at large has said, this is important to us, this is something we want to create policy and preserve policy around this purpose. And so a lot of the public policy decisions come from that, that same framework.
Thank you.
While I would agree that it is part of our DNA in San Clemente to consider our historic resources, I think we have long neglected our historic heritage, even though on the side it looks like we are honoring it. Even though we had a study
that showed what we should do with our historic resources in 2006. We did not implement any of that study. So I believe that the recommendations in that study of actually having historic districts should be looked at, because I think they should not be, we should not make decisions on our town in a vacuum, and we should include our historical heritage along with that. So I would say that we need to abide by that. We need to include our historical buildings in our plan. If you don't think that is true, just look at North Beach and see what has happened, that part of our town has languished because we have not improved the Miramar and restored it. So if that doesn't show you that we need to use our historical heritage as anchors for the different areas of our town, then there is nothing else that I can give you an example of.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ricardo Nickel. Thanks, Rod, for having us here today. I've lived in San Clemente since 1957, since I was 3 years old. So I've seen the town change quite a bit, and I appreciate the Spanish revival architecture that Ole Hansen brought in to San Clemente in the 20s and 30s. In fact, I lived in one of his houses for a couple of years. It's something that we have to preserve. I agree with what Rod is saying about taking an integrative, balanced, analytical approach to projects that are being proposed in the city. We do have to maintain our heritage. Obviously, we need to do something about the Miramar Theater. And I used to go to that movie theater when I was a kid every weekend, and it breaks your heart to see it languishing the way it has for so many years. So something does need to be worked out with the Miramar, and it needs to be done in a way that preserves the historical character of the facility, and at the same time is economically viable and relevant to today. So I favor a balanced approach. If I'm on the city council, I'm going to look at everything in that light, balance, and take an analytical, balanced approach to everything that we do, preserve and protect the value of the things that we have, and at the same time, we do want to foster innovation, creativity, and we are in the 21st century now, so that's a good thing. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Mickey Rathman, a long-term resident and a local business owner. One thing that I thought was very interesting that Rod said in his comments about San Clemente was looking outside of our community for advice. If you look at the CVS as an example on El Camino Real with the humps and the bumps that we all sort of see, and oh, they look a little dirty. I believe that those were the recommendation of an outside advisor, a company from San Diego who had come to give San Clemente advice on making us look more traditional and, like it had before. And that looking outside maybe didn't really benefit us, and that we have 64,000 residents that live and work in our beautiful community, and that we should be looking within and looking to the leaders and the business people within San Clemente for those types of elements of advice and how to help develop individuals and groups like the Historical Society. That they've spent countless hours looking and seeing and looking at the best practices of what we have in our community, and that instead of looking outside, I would definitely be a proponent on the council of looking within our community to help develop and to keep and to integrate the uniqueness that is San Clemente, and that it is something that makes us special, and is the reason that we all want to live, work, and play here, is because of that uniqueness, and that absolutely we should take a different approach perhaps than other communities have in making sure that we keep our special uniqueness as our Spanish village by the sea.
Hi, Jim Dahl. My wife and I were just talking yesterday that this weekend is our 50th anniversary of living in San Clemente. And it was funny, we signed our lease on a Friday morning, and my wife went into labor at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and we had to scramble up to Hogue. and because we didn't have a hospital in it. And that's going to be a real challenge for us in the next 18 months, is whether or not we have a hospital, and that's going to affect our lives. I mean, our real lives, not just our social lives, not our physical, our buildings or whatever. It's going to affect our personal lives and the lives of our children. I think San Clemente's done a wonderful job. Of course, back in the 70s, during the expansion of the library, the community center, of course, we unfortunately tore down quite a few Ole Hansen-style buildings, which was very unfortunate at the time, but we kept some real gems. We have over 200 on the list of historic structures that came out of the Landmark Task Force. And I think we did a great job of bringing everybody together, the whole community together. Historical Society was part of it. And we had a year and a half of conscious effort to put together a historical properties list, landmarks list, and to protect our vital resources of the community. The Miramar is a real question mark in everybody's mind. Why hasn't anything happened there? Well, it's got about $6 million invested in it, the bank does, and the rate of return is just not there on a $6 million investment. So they're going to have to either take a haircut, or somebody's going to have to come into town with a lot of effort to be able to do something. We need to create historic districts in San Clemente. North Beach, Pier Bowl, T-Zone. We need to work very hard on that. And also, I was a big proponent of the Mills Act when it was first created in San Clemente in 1996. We've had some problems with it over the time with whether or not a building is totally historic in nature and the way it was they were completed and the contracts were signed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, hi, good afternoon. I'm Lori Donchak, and thank you for organizing this forum. I guess my reply to your question is going to be a story. About 20 years ago, my husband and I decided it was time to move back to San Clemente. My parents lived down at T Street, and we wanted to be close by in case they needed anything, and they have. So we started looking around. We love old houses, and we found one above the Ole Hansen Elementary School that we fell in love with, and I see some of my neighbors from La Cuesta are here today. The house was built in 1939, and it was a disaster. It had original wiring, it had termite carcasses, it had windows that were broken. From the master bedroom on the second floor, you could look through a hole into the bathroom on the first floor. It was a house with great bones, but a lot of neglect. But we like fixing things, so we put an offer in, and it was turned down. So we kept looking, and now it's a year after that, and now the house is being sold as a dividable lot. And the listing broker tells us we can scrape the house and quotes a price for that, and we can put 3 houses on the property, and wouldn't that be a wonderful thing for San Clemente, and we could just make out like bandits. And so my husband and I, that kind of activated us the other way to protect the house. And so we bought the house, and every year for the last 15 years, we budget to restore something. Last year was ripping out and replacing a driveway. They didn't have rebar back in the 1930s. What I want to quickly tell you, though, is along the way, a resident named Brad Samways came along, and he said that his mother had been the second owner of this house, and that she was 94 years old. Oh, gee, I gotta tell okay. Anyway, the point of this story is, fast forward 15 years, and now we have the San Clemente Historical Society to keep us honest. We have things like the Mills Act. We have things like a master plan, and I'm just so grateful for those things and look forward to them as we go toward our 100th birthday.
Thank you, Lori. So let me, I promised you guys would have statements. I just didn't want to start with them.
I think everyone did but me, praise basically.
Well, it's okay. Yeah, I know. We'll do that. But I find that with the audience that we have, I just wanted to really cut down to some of the issues and then maybe leave them with the last reminder of who that you are and why they should be voting. So that's kind of the reasoning behind it. Okay, the one conventional, I know, but bad habits are part of it. Okay, so virtually every resident moving here to enjoy San Clemente quality of life, In 2009, we discussed a professional survey that was done.
Excuse me just a minute, please.
I'm
If
sorry?
you would put that microphone closer to your mouth, we would hear you much better like we're hearing the candidates.
Yeah.
It's working, but
Thank you.
you're turning your head away from it.
Thank you, appreciate it. So the survey, the professional survey that was done in 2009, almost all expressed a desire to preserve the small town village feel and said they wanted to maintain rather than change the character of San Clemente. How do you, as a city council member, plan to maintain San Clemente's existing small town atmosphere?
First of all, our general plan was created recently, we have a new general plan, by residents. The very vision of the residents and what they want to see our town remain and become is in that document. It sounds easy to we just have to follow the plan. Well, that plan is not implemented yet. The guidelines are there, the design guidelines are there, but the zoning has not been changed, and it's going to take 2 to 3 years to put in place the implementation program for this general plan. First of all, I am a planning commissioner for the city of San Clemente. I am used to evaluating projects that come into this town for their impact to surrounding uses, to residences, to traffic congestion, public safety. I would continue to do that. I would follow the residents' vision for this town. The goal that we have, the 2009 study said that residents ultimately wanted to keep our village character intact and our small town feel. We do that by keeping the scale of our environment that would fit that description. It would be small, not large stories, nothing over 2-story on Del Mar. Our uniqueness and our strength in this town is our history and our small town. That is what we need to preserve. That is what the residents want. That is the feel that they want, and that is the quality of life they want. They want it to remain that because they know that they have quality of life now, and they want that to continue. So I would follow the general plan, and I would encourage more historical districts and more look at preserving our heritage and where we came from. This town was started by Ole Hansen to where we could live in a place more pleasantly than anyone else. I think he accomplished that. In this town, everyone stands up and says how much they love this town. That is what we need to preserve.
I grew up in the classic Southern California beach town. And that's the way it needs to stay. Now, progress is inevitable, growth is inevitable, and those are things that we're going to have to deal with on a rational basis. But if I have a core belief that all of my decision making will flow from, it's this. The most valuable resource in this town, besides its people, are our beaches and our coastline. And if we can't see it, if we can't have easy access to it, if it's not clean when we get there, if there's no sand when we get there, then what's the point of living here, and why would anybody want to come into this town and spend their money here? So all of my analysis starts with that core belief, and my decisions will flow from that core belief. And of course that includes maintaining the historical character of the town, while at the same time fostering clean, balanced, harmonious projects throughout the city, maintain the historical character of the T-zone, and we have to do something about North Beach and the Miramar Theater. I know it's been mentioned a lot to the point of it being a cliche, but it really, why, it just screams out cultural center, art center, something along those lines. So these are things that we really need to resolve within the context of keeping this the classic 15 seconds, the classic California beach town that we all love.
I think part of the question was what would I do when elected to help, maintain our historic village character and the preservation of San Clemente. I think that our current council and the Planning Commission have put together an amazing plan going forward to help San Clemente to grow modestly, to integrate and work with the company stores, the big outlet mall that is coming, and some of the big projects that we have in relation to the I-5 work and the La Plata expansion. I think that something that is a strong suit for me as a business leader is working in collaboration with others. And I think that's really important going forward in maintaining our historic preservation and the characters of San Clemente is to work in collaboration with groups like the Historical Society, with the San Clemente Chamber of Commerce, with the Downtown Business Association, and with other groups that have similar goals and missions. And that should be something that we do together. That it isn't necessarily one-sided, that it isn't the council that's making these decisions on our own, that you elect us as your representative, and that we work together to preserve the things that we hold dear, and what was most important to us as citizens was the small town character of San Clemente.
Thank you. I don't know if y'all know it, but San Clemente was the first master planned community in the state of California, which is a very unusual attribute for a beach community. Ole Hansen, when he came down from Washington, he had just done a master planned community there, and he sort of had to get out of town in a hurry, and came down to San Clemente, and we benefited from his idea of a master plan. Unfortunately, of course, the freeway in the mid-50s sort of put a stop to it in a way, and formed a dividing line between the old community, the master plan community, and what's gone on in the last few years. A True North survey was very interesting. It asked a lot of pertinent questions, and we got some great answers from the community. And I think the answers are that they like to keep things the way they were, but yet bring them into the 21st century. And I think that we've done a great job of that, especially on Del Mar and the T-Zone. We have a lot of work to do on South El Camino. It needs a lot of energy, and it needs a lot of scrutiny at the same time. The zoning and ordinance portion of the general plan is going to be a real endeavor over the next couple of years. It's not going to come easy, because we're going to have competing elements in the community on what they want in their zoning and their ordinances. So the general plan has been adopted, and now the hard work begins. But don't forget, San Clemente was the first master planned community in the state of California.
Okay, so I understood the question to be, as a city council member, how would I approach quality of life? And I'm not a politician by training, but I have learned a lot along the way, and I basically have 5 guiding principles that I bring to bear on issues including quality of life. The first one, many of you have heard me say, is it fair and equitable? The second one is, what is the community benefit? Because you're asking us to represent you in that way, and so we should be clear on what's good for our community versus what might be clear for a private interest or an individual. The third thing I've learned is you must listen to the people who care, whether it's building a beach trail, whether it's nuclear energy, whether it is the Historical Society. There are people, we are a town, somebody used the term DNA. In our DNA is advocacy, and the people that are the content experts on some of these issues can be so valuable to helping us navigate through issues. So that's my third principle. My fourth one is, and this one is probably the one I hold most dear, we have an obligation to future generations. And so when it comes to quality of life, we talk about the Miramar, we talk about the pier. What people will do is tell you the stories of the first date at the Miramar, or the time they went fishing and caught the big one off the pier, or the time they went down Del Mar and found the perfect item. It's the stories, and so I feel a huge obligation as a city council to make sure that future generations get that experience from us. So I'm going to run out of time, But those are my guiding principles, and I bring them to bear on everything. And the other thing I'd like to put out there, because I didn't know this until I got on city council, your council members make about 1,000 decisions every year. And you don't know that because there's only the 1 or 2 or 3 that get a lot of press. And we work very hard, but when you make 1,000 decisions a year, it's really important to have a moral compass. And so that would be my answer to the question.
You know, this question is interesting because I have to confess, the last election, my approach to this was, just from an outsider perspective, there's a lot of different things that you want to improve around town. I was saying we want to make sure that we're retaining our village character, we want to improve tourism, there's all these different objectives we want to accomplish. One of the first things I learned when I looked at, after I was elected, and I looked at how we received our revenue as a city, how we were laid out was, it's important to maintain the village character, but it's just important to remember who we're maintaining it for. And the answer to that question is this is a residents-first community. And let me explain, is because if we maintain that village character and that feel to the satisfaction of the residents, then the tourists and whoever else are visitors will also enjoy it, because we are what I would consider the subject matter experts. We are the ones who live here, who work here, we understand it, and so we should first please in all these decisions the residents and everything we do. And the tourists and visitors and other folks who really want to take part of that will be able to appreciate the work that we do or the things that we establish through our work. And so when I answer this question about village character, one of the things that was important to me, and became, especially the general plan, was fairly controversial. Massing and intensity of use is something that was a big item of concern, and also considering what I believe is the heart of our community, which is the Del Mar T-zone, which is why I pushed for retaining some type of limitation to a lesser degree to the building heights along the Del Mar T-zone area. We had put into place, in an effort for revitalization, we put into place some mixed-use allowances which allowed for a higher, more intense building usage, which I didn't favor. I really pushed to go back to what we had in place for many years previous, and I believe that's something that will really help us retain that essential village character. Just one example, but that's exactly what we should be making decisions for.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks, Ricardo.
Gotta think fast, gotta,
Well, we touched on the Miramar.
all right, gotta think faster.
Okay, ready?
Right, I'm ready, go.
So we've touched on the Miramar, we've touched about North Beach. It is, as Jim had mentioned, this is a planned community by Ole Hansen. North Beach was always planned from the very beginning as an entertainment zone. If you look at the old maps, it may not have looked exactly the same as this. It actually had higher density, but we have the Miramar, we have the bowling alley. It is registered, it is recognized on the historical list that the city has basically accepted. And a few years ago, there was a plan to downsize, for example, the neighboring historic casino San Clemente, okay, in the North Beach. In fact, slide it to the corner of the property, make a way for mixed-use building with high-end condominiums and retail below. And Mike, who was at the back of the room there, did a presentation where he showed the implosion of the casino if it was to be moved, because in fact it's a wood dome that is retention held in place. So the idea of, we just move it to the side of the road off the knoll, also had ramifications that were not being discussed. So the Historical Society fought to keep the historic property intact in the case of the casino. And the developer ultimately gave up on the project. The Sadegis came in, they picked it up, and today the casino house is a thriving special events venue. I believe the seating is even larger than the Casa, which was recently named San Clemente's Business of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce themselves. So my question is this: if elected, what would you do to preserve the historic Miramar Theater building?
Well, I'd like to see a double feature again there, someday with a cartoon, but I don't think that's going to happen. Well, I understand that there are new owners of Miramar Theater, and we have to work with everybody to find a viable solution to the Miramar that works economically for the new owners and at the same time is in keeping with the historical significance of the building. I understand that the building is structurally sound, so it, you know, from that respect, if the argument that you know, it should be torn down because it's an eyesore, that doesn't work. But we do need to find an answer. I don't have the answer. I think we have to work hard to find the answer with the new owners. And it's going to be a process that's going to take time, but we really do have to, we really have to drill deep and get into it. In the meantime, I would like to see the city, and I would support the idea of keeping it, I mean, right now, it's fallen and it's become a little bit seedy. Right now, we should probably be doing some nice landscaping and keeping it clean. It's become a center of homeless activity, which brings up another issue, which I'm sure we'll get into later, but that needs to be addressed. So in the meantime, until we find the right solution, and we need to work very hard to find the right solution, we should immediately start maintaining the exterior of the building and landscaping so that it looks nice now.
One of the great things about the Historical Society, I think, can be seen in the example of saving the San Clemente Casino. That someone had bought it, they had an idea of something that they wanted to do, which is part of the American dream, that you get to have ideas and implement them. But their idea wasn't in alignment with sort of the vision and the mission of San Clemente, and the Historical Society brought that to light for the rest of the community. That it's easy to get busy and to be living your own life, and you don't necessarily see and know all of the things that are going on around you. And I think as you maybe look at the demographics of the Historical Society, that maybe there aren't some folks maybe who are my age as active members, and that's a shame. As aside from that, the fact that the Historical Society brought to light that there was the potential loss of such a gem in our community, something happened, a change was made. The people who had purchased the casino realized that it wasn't going to turn out like they wanted, so someone else got it, the lab, and they were able to do something amazing. The right person ended up with the property whose vision was in alignment with San Clemente and now has a beautiful event venue. And as an event planner, I love it. It's one of my favorite places in town to have events. I think that the Miramar needs that same kind of owner, that needs someone who's passionate about the vision and the mission of San Clemente and sort of falls in alignment with that. So whether it's lobbying, advocacy, meeting with those people and helping them see what it could be, and then maybe they'll realize they're not the right person, and that with economic development, which is something that's lacking within the structure, I think, of the government of San Clemente with our chamber and the city council, that we need some economic development people, that they might be able to help us find the right people to take over the Miramar so that it could then be restored and be something wonderful. Well, we could go see a double feature with Tom and Jerry cartoons. That would be fantastic.
Thank you. On my 4 terms on the city council, we pondered the fate of the Miramar over 16 years. And we pondered the fate of the Miramar over the last 2 years. It's going to be a real challenge to be able to redevelop that property and still keep the building intact. Property owners change, and they've changed over the years. And right now, I'm not sure exactly who knows who the property owners is, other than the Bank of America, unless Wayne bought it over the weekend. Did you go to the garage sale, Wayne, and buy it? Okay.
Yeah, we went to it.
We spent, the city over the last 7 or 8 years has done a lot of things to try to incentivize the owner to do something with the property. We did an engineering report. We painted the building a couple of times. The city has on its own. There was some demolition by neglect, so we had the property owner fix the roof so it wouldn't get worse. But it's going to be a real challenge. It's going to be a dollar and cents challenge for the property owner to be able to to redevelop the building and redevelop the property in a use that's compatible with the rest of the community. Another thing, the Marblehead Coastal Development gave $1.5 million to the city for use for North Beach rehabilitation, and most probably that would be the best place for it. We're adding some parking. We have some other areas that we can add some more parking, but we have to provide parking for an adaptive reuse of the building. The Coastal Commission and CEQA requires that. So it's going to be a big challenge. Hopefully the new owner, whoever he or she or group it is, will spark some initiative in the community to get the Miramar restored.
Okay, the Miramar. I mentioned how I approach problem solving on City Council. I have a special screen for the decisions that I call are irreversible, and the Miramar falls into that category because once it's gone, there's no replacing it. So it's one that I spend a lot of time thinking about because you can't give enough time to those decisions that can't be reversed. The second thing I know with clarity is when it comes to old buildings, there's three components. You have to buy it, you have to restore it, you have to maintain it with an eye toward how you're going to replace the pieces down the road. So as we look at the Miramar, it's a really very expensive challenge, and we keep twisting around what should be the city's position on this. I'm very thrilled with the parking lot decision that we've made in North Beach recently because that is an incentive that it is appropriate for government to offer to a private developer in terms of creating more parking for the Miramar, and that gives a potential developer a little more flexibility in terms of the uses that they might contemplate for the property. The $1.5 million that was mentioned, okay, I'm one of those people that doesn't count my chickens till they hatch. We haven't actually seen that money. The Taylor Morrison homes have to go into place to trigger that money coming to the city, but that might be some money that would be used for Miramar or for the master planned area called North Beach, because in my view, the Miramar is kind of the activator for a broader opportunity for North Beach. So I very much love the building. I too would like to see a movie there. I have heard from a restaurant developer in Laguna Beach who has an idea of putting a kitchen in the orchestra pit, showing movies where the screen is, and then having the dining on terraces. That's kind of interesting. So I'm very optimistic, but I'm also realistic.
I think the outreach regarding the Miramar Theater probably on behalf of every member of council has been extensive. With the property owners at least 3 times. I know different members of council also did so. We paid for an adaptive reuse study. There's only so far you can go in government before the person who owns the property has responsibility for it. Now, what is our responsibility is to ensure that the rest of North Beach is looking good. And that's exactly what we did recently when we built a parking lot there to allow for more capacity on a parking basis. I think it's going to be a very attractive parking lot, if that's even something you can say, particularly, but it's something I think that's going to add an improvement to the area. And so, my answer to really how you preserve the Miramar is I think it's been very clear that this community sees that as an important asset, as a historical resource, and that if anybody bought it, it shouldn't be a surprise, and if it is a surprise, they're denial. And so what is important for us to do is to ensure that everything we can do, we are doing. Meaning, are we improving the streets correctly, the sidewalks, are we, that parking lot development with the Marblehead Coastal and retail centers coming online, are we making sure the circulation is correct for those areas and not getting a lot of congestion? There's a lot we can do short of us going out and hiring a bunch of people and taking over landlord property rights and then throwing millions of dollars after the problem. It's important, one of the things I've really learned is important to understand that good government is government that knows what it's good at. Meaning, we are very good at public works projects, we're good at district, other things, those types of improvements. Once we start these forays into private property development and retail centers and other things, is where I believe we start to go into an area where we're not comfortable or not particularly excellent. but we have shown a great skill set at some of those other items. So for me, from a historical preservation perspective, if you build it, meaning all the environment around it, the infrastructure, and keep it correct, then it will come. Eventually, the right development will come, the right developer, and we'll have an opportunity at that point to really make it something special.
The Miramar was sold back to the beneficiaries in a trustee sale at the end of August. I got to attend that sale on the courthouse steps in Santa Ana, and I went because I was so excited. I thought I was going to get to see the new owner of the Miramar. While no one did bid on it, there are interested parties in this building. So I am not so pessimistic that it's going to take a lot and it's going to be so hard to restore the Miramar. I think with what is happening around the Miramar right now, the outlet mall, 308 coastal homes on that bluff, there is going to be a lot of renewed interest in North Beach. The City Council has, and the Planning Commission did authorize a new bicycle bike lane on PCH from Camino Capistrano into the entrance of North Beach. The City Council was generous and landscaped that median so that we will all have a safe route to Dana Point and back. Also, the developer of the outlet center in Marblehead, they will be landscaping all of Pico, those medians down to that. So everything is in place right now for North Beach to take off. We, as a city, need to commit to this area, finally make it a historic district as what was recommended. We have 4 historic properties grouped together. We have that nowhere else in our city. It is the perfect place for a historic district. It will bring in tourists. It has the greatest capacity to be a gathering place by the ocean, a seaside location for our community. And that, I am excited actually about the Miramar right now. I am not pessimistic at all.
Okay, you guys brought up the mall, and you brought up the...
Speak into the mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
We can hear you fine because you're talking to us. Or else.
I hate these things, but thanks. Okay, so we talk about North Beach, we talk about it needing to be a district, a historic district. We just all drove down the main historic district in town, on Del Mar, which is not really recognized or promoted as its own historic district. We're all focusing on North Beach and the Miramar and the mall and all this stuff, which leads me to the next question. Kind of related, so bear with me just a little long. How will you ensure that Great Realty and the home developers will adhere to the plan that they have signed on for? Specifically, how will you protect the downtown Del Mar area's businesses in light of the massive retail competition? Like things like connecting tour trolleys, or, you know, when we have issues with signage potentially, but leave the signage out of it. We have definitely a very strong potential competition with the downtown area, which is mostly owner-operated small business, not large boxes. And like I said, we're talking about recognizing a historic district in North Beach when we haven't even recognized what we are all commit to as being the heart, the pulsating heart of San Clemente in the Del Mar area. We call it architectural overlay, but I haven't seen anything that says we're promoting this as our historical district, our heart. So what would you do to ensure that that happens?
That's really important to me, making sure that our local business owners are bolstered and supported during the time that the company stores are coming. I think one of the things that we can do, and the developer had initially said that he would be up for doing this, we just need to keep on him and make sure that it happens, is having kiosks and historic sort of information centers where we're able to promote the heritage and the history of San Clemente, where we're also able to promote our downtown T-zone and the wonderful opportunity in local business owners and the local energy and vibe that's there, that we should have the opportunity and take it to promote that at the company stores. I'm also a huge proponent of having a shuttle, a trolley, the Ole Hansen shuttle, for example, that could take people from the company stores outlet mall downtown. They could leave their cars there, which would help alleviate some of the parking issues that we currently are seeing downtown, and get people to see our local businesses, our local artisans, craft people, and our amazing restaurants. I also think that utilizing some of our TOT tax to promote San Clemente and to promote the downtown in collaboration with the Chamber and the Downtown Business Association, so that people do know that that's an area that's available, that's wonderful, that can meet their shopping needs, and that's a destination. Outlet malls tend to get their own sort of publicity, so it's on us as a community, as well as the organizations within our community, like I said, the Chamber and the Downtown Business Association, to promote that via signage, via marketing, so that people know that it's there and can still support and bolster the heart of our community.
Thank you. The development of San Clemente Plaza Outlet Center is going to be a real impact on the community. But it has some opportunities that maybe we can take advantage of. Number one is awareness as the people travel through the outlet center of the different areas of San Clemente, like you're saying, the kiosks. Maybe the Surf Museum can come there and have a display and attract people there, and then attract people to Del Mar. The Tri-City Trolley, I think, is going to come back with the cities of Dana Point, San Juan Capistrano, and San Clemente. Hopefully the OCTA, and Lori serves on the OCTA board, that we'll be able to get the OCTA to help us with that, and develop an interconnection maybe with the Laguna Beach Trolley too, so it would be a tremendous advantage. Right now, the city gives the DVA about $40,000 a year, plus or minus, for promotions and for programs on Del Mar. I think that it would behoove us to work with the Outlet Plaza San Clemente and the DVA and build a synergism between the two of them, and so they can work together and not be competitive. There's unique areas on Del Mar, unique shops that will not occur in the outlet center. So I think they'll work together, and with the Chamber of Commerce, the DVA, the North Beach Community Association that's now emerging. I think we have a great opportunity for a wonderful shopping experience for visitors coming to San Clemente, and also for tourists coming to San Clemente.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So I am a great believer in the saying that a rising tide lifts all boats. And so I'm very, very optimistic about some of the byproducts of the Marblehead Coastal Project coming in. One of the statistics that I like is that there are going to be 1,000 jobs potentially generated by that site. And so I think about those 1,000 people, and I think about maybe they'll come over to Del Mar, maybe they'll be spending their money in town. Heaven forbid, maybe they'll live in town and they'll realize the vision of being able to live and work in San Clemente. So I guess the first thing, I'm optimistic about this development in terms of what it does for business and potentially for Del Mar. So that's number one. Number two, in our new general plan is a resident serving trolley. And resident serving is the operative descriptor of it. It's going to be for us, but it would connect from the train station to the places that we as citizens decide we want it to stop. As it was mentioned, I am the South County representative on the Orange County Transportation Authority, and there will be a request for projects coming up this year, and we're going to put our trolley program out there to see if we're competitive. But it would be a great way to create connectivity, not just between Del Mar and Marblehead Coastal, but in fact we have 5 business hubs in town, and it's kind of exciting to think about how that works, and the array of offerings that cause people then to keep their money in San Clemente rather than having to drive to Mission VA Hub. The third point I wanted to bring up, I mentioned that I listen hard to people that know a lot about what they're good at. Somebody's given me a big fat folder on BIDs, which are business development districts, and I think if I'm reelected, that's a project I'd like to take on if the people on Del Mar are open to that. But that's a great way to create solidarity and create money to make an area vital.
This is an excellent question, one that's particularly relevant with what I believe is a convergence of a number of different elements that are coming to San Clemente all in the same time period, and that is the I-5 widening project, the La Pata extension completion, the emergence of obviously the Craig outlets, the Marblehead Retail Center, as well as the residential component. And then you also have development of Rancho Mission Viejo out inside it's going to be thousands and thousands of new homes and residents. And what we're going to see over the next 3 to 5 years is an extremely dramatic change in the people that visit San Clemente, who are circulating through San Clemente, and how they circulate through San Clemente. The thing that I would say that's very important in this entire philosophy is I believe that there is going to be initially, if I look at the information about it, we're going to have a period of time where the newness of the outlet center will overwhelm much of perhaps the business that's going on in town. People are going to want to know what's going on. They're going to experience that new retail, outlet, and so there's going to be, I think, an initial hit to our small businesses along El Camino Real and Del Mar. That's just the reality of it. The new sometimes is a very exciting thing. It's very seductive. I think the council, and particularly leadership role, should be, during this time, have a series of emergency measures in place, for lack of a better word, in terms of signage policy, in terms of displays of outlets. We can put more money into supporting the DVA and the business centers around town, not as a funding of private businesses, but just a supplement to help maybe offset some of the impact of the outlet center and how much attention they're going to get. But I do believe that it's something that if we retain the uniqueness of this district, and we don't try and be like the outlet center in any way, that we really retain what makes it unique, that it will be able to last, and that ultimately you'll see more of a harmony between the two districts, where one may feed off the other through kiosks and other items. But the trick is when confronted with the new, is not to replicate it, but to retain what is really good about what you have, and then wait for that to abate until the business can continue and get the equilibrium back.
Can you repeat the question, because you said something about Del Mar being a district and we haven't talked about that.
Well, we were talking about North Beach being recognized as a district and all the beautification of Pico and what have you. And to be honest, I'm feeling like Del Mar is being forgotten when it's been around for so long, and the only way we recognize it as being different is that we refer to it as a T-zone with some architectural guidelines. But we have not done, it's a brandable environment. It is an outdoor mall, if you will. It has all mom and pop, small businesses in it, and we have done nothing to actually promote that environment as a brandable destination. And we have the reality of the mall coming in and the economic impact it's going to have on people. So.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I have not left out Del Mar as a district. I believe it should be a historic district. It's not just Ole Hansen properties. It is mid-century buildings that are charming and lovely and add to the uniqueness of Del Mar. If we choose to make that a district, the property owners will be able to get federal tax credits to restore these buildings. Any money that they put in, it will be matched by the federal government. I want to say it's 20%. Okay. So I believe that the strength of Del Mar is its uniqueness, is its charm, is its small town. It should be a wonderful district, just as Old Pasadena Historic District has. They optimized their district and have made it an actual historic district. All the buildings together will contribute to that. I believe that is what we have to do in order to preserve our businesses and continue to our district to be successful. I don't believe that we are competing with the outlet mall. I believe we stand on our own. It is the heart of San Clemente. I truly believe that. And as a council person, I would promote it as a district and try to help those owners come together and really truly create an experience that people cannot get somewhere else. They're going to continually want to come to San Clemente to experience our town. And Del Mar is that district. I think that's all that I'm going to say on that.
Thanks,
I'm next. I agree with Lori. In fact, my soundbite was going to be a rising tide floats all ships, but I don't believe that the businesses on Del Mar necessarily need to fear that they're going to be overwhelmed by competition from the outlet malls. The outlet malls consist of major retailers. The Del Mar shopping district we've got boutique shops, specialty shops, and very nice restaurants. I believe that there's a huge potential there for those two different types of shopping experiences to really complement each other. From what I understand, the developer understands that, and he's very enthusiastic about promoting the downtown area with kiosks, as Mickey mentioned, and that sort of thing in the mall to promote the downtown area. And it is an opportunity. As people come in, as people from out of town come in to the mall and shop at the mall, they're going to become curious about the rest of San Clemente. I mean, how can you not pull off the freeway and see this beautiful ocean? I mean, if your purpose is to stop at the mall and pick up something from an outlet store, but you look around, you can't help but notice what your surroundings. You're going to want to see the rest of the town. And I do think that, as Jim said, that there's a huge potential for a synergistic effect between the outlet malls and the downtown areas. And I really like the fact that the Tri-City Trolley is something that's coming, hopefully coming to fruition. It's going to be great for not just the Del Mar area, but I think it's also going to be something that's going to get people to the beach at all 9 access points in the city and really complete the visitors, especially for the out-of-town visitors, really complete the San Clemente experience for them and make them want to come back. And so everybody makes money, the developers at the outlet mall, the retailers at the outlet mall, and the business folks downtown.
Thank you. So,
Thanks. Hey, Rad, how's it going?
pretty good. Before we leave downtown, there's been discussion about parking for many years, about parking and the lack of parking in the downtown area, which a lot of the merchants have said is also part of the issues, that they don't have a lot of available parking, and we have all been through, well, you can park 2 streets over and what have you, and providing additional parking through agreements with private property owners and so forth. There's been a discussion about possibly a parking structure or a couple of decks in the back of the library. Given the congested nature of Pelizada and coming off the freeway, and the fact that any kind of investment in a parking structure would require a couple of hundred, maybe probably 500, 600, maybe 800 trips a day to justify the cost of something of that nature, let alone the impact on an already dense, small streeted community. I keep hearing about the parking structure being the solution. I don't personally think that is a very far-seeing, sustainable solution, but be that as it may, what role do you believe a pedestrian or possibly an alternative transportation or bicycle-friendly community plan, especially when we have been recognized recently for such plans at the state level and in Orange County, what role do you believe that plays in preserving village character and historical structures in their neighborhoods?
Boy, that's a challenge. Parking's always been a real challenge in the T-zone. I think there's some opportunities, though, that we're missing. We made some agreements, the council did in the last 10 years or so with private property owners to use parking that wasn't used in the evening, to be able to be used for public parking. And I think we should explore that a little more and get some more property agreements with some of the other property owners that have not been approached, or they have been approached, but they weren't agreeable to it. I think there's an opportunity too for maybe a valet service of some sort to our city parking lot, our city parking lots, and the private parking that's on Granada or on Cabrillo. I'm not sure if a parking structure in and of itself next to the library would be the answer. The cost for that would be just horrendous. To a double decker, it would probably be in the order of $4 or $5 million. But it might create some new opportunities for connection with the library, the community center, and the 200 block of Del Mar. But how are you going to finance it? Will the property owners in the area want to participate in it? It's hard to say. We tried to do a business improvement district about 7 or 8 years ago, and because of the fact we had so many absentee landlords, but we had quite a few local tenants, it was hard to get that accomplished. So I think the advent of, believe it or not, the advent of the San Clemente Plaza, the outlet center, with all its parking and the interconnectivity with a trolley system, will alleviate maybe some of that parking impact on the T-zone and the surrounding streets.
Next time we do this, we get you guys 2 microphones. Or a runner.
I love this question. 2 minutes is not going to be enough. Okay. First of all, I would like to recognize Brenda Miller is in the back, and she is the one that got the American Planning Association Award for our community in terms of our mobility plan. And she was also Advocate of the Year, so just wanted to recognize her. It was the only Orange County award in the state, so it was a big deal. Okay, now, this is